Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me on the Women of the West podcast. I am super excited to be joined today with Miss Rodeo Canada 2019, Jaden Holle. Thank you so much for joining me today, Jaden.
Thanks for having me, Alyssa. It feels good to be asked to do an interview again after feels like nobody's wanted to talk to me for a while.
It'll be like riding a bike. You'll be good to go.
See if it comes back.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's super nice to get to chat with you again. It's been a while since we've got to visit with you traveling and being super busy, and then all of us having to kind of go into lockdown. So I'm excited to get to spend some quality time together today.
Yeah, back at you. We all know it's been a really, really crazy time, but it's, I think especially for me, the contrast of being on the road constantly and then being locked in my home, that was different, but also kind of a welcome breath.
Yeah, for sure. I bet that was really different. You went from doing your whole year as Miss Rodeo Canada and being pretty busy for the whole time, and then you went off on a trip pretty much as soon as you got back from Vegas, and then all of a sudden you were in your house.
Yeah, I'm glad I traveled when I did, but I've been able to take this time in lockdown and kind of work on some of the things that have really been put on hold for the last couple years, so that's been good, and it is nice to connect with you as well. I feel it's been hard not seeing everyone as rodeo season is starting up again.
Yeah, for sure. I think everyone's kind of missing out on getting to catch up with their rodeo friends and family and having that time to come together again. So this is a nice option to meet some new people and then also to come back together with some old friends. So yes, I definitely agree. It's a fun thing that we can do for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, so we can just jump right in. So I'll start with the number one question that everybody gets asked. So where did becoming a woman in the start for you?
It's such a funny question. It seems so simple, but in some ways I feel like it's been in my blood forever, and in other ways I feel like, can I even call myself a woman in the Western world? You know, it's something I almost feel like you kind of have to earn your stripes. But for me, so I kind of was born into a family that had a little bit of a history in kind of rodeo in the Western world. My great-grandpa used to drive a chuck wagon, and he was in the Calgary Stampede way back in 1946, I think. And so I kind of grew up around those stories, and my dad team roped a little bit when he was in college, but then my parents had kids, and as most people do, ended up moving into the city, and none of their kids really took much of an interest in horses or in the Western way of life, really. It was funny, they named my brother is the firstborn in our family, and they named him Cody Lane Holle because they thought that would make a really good cowboy name. And then he just had no interest whatsoever. And then along came Jaden. I'm the youngest of 4 kids. And I was kind of the one that latched on to the idea of, I always wanted to be a cowgirl, and I had a little pink frilly outfit that I don't know even where I got that idea, but that was my cowgirl outfit. I guess in my mind that's what cowgirl's for. And so the love just kind of grew from there from a young age, from hearing those stories about my Grandpa Roy that I never even met, but his legacy kind of inspired me to follow that path. So my parents finally got me a horse, and of course that went along with all of the teasing from my older siblings. The youngest favorite spoiled girl gets a horse just for asking. But I always say, if any of you wanted a horse, I'm sure they would have made that happen for you as well. I just happened to be the youngest and had to be the brunt of those spoiled jokes. So I did 4-H growing up, and then it was kind of more in the showing 4-H side of things, really really then rodeo until being older in life and kind of deciding to pursue the rodeo queen journey.
Yeah, that's an awesome story, and I like how you had those really great roots and kind of took those roots and ran with it. And it was so fun when you came to Sundre and you had family that had been involved a lot with Sundre and with the rodeo, and the announcers were able to play on that. And I think it's cool that the Western roots are so strong in Alberta and in our culture, that even those people that kind of drift away from it a little bit, they seem to come back. And yeah, I liked that story, and I like that we were able to add that little bit when you did come to Sundre.
Yeah, it's so neat that you bring that up, because Sundre was such a special rodeo for me for that reason. Because kind of up until that point, it had just been stories for me, but in some ways they just felt like legends when I heard the stories about my grandpa or my uncle. So coming to Sundre and meeting people that had known them and rodeoed with them, it just made it really real. And I got a bit emotional at certain points in that rodeo because it just kind of reaffirmed, I mean, everyone belongs. Rodeo is a family and everyone belongs. But I think I did struggle a little bit with, do I have a place here? Because I didn't grow up going to rodeos. My parents didn't pack me along all over Alberta and to every rodeo. So I kind of came into that later in life. But it was really nice to see that, my family still did have those roots.
Yeah, that's super cool, and that's definitely something that I'm sure that some people that are on the Sundre Rodeo Committee or in the town of Sundre do listen to the podcast, but the next time I get together with the Rodeo Committee, I'll have to tell them that them sharing those stories with you also kind of cemented that, like, yes, I am meant to be here. This path was what I was supposed to do. So that's really cool that we were able to kind of be a part of that journey for you. That makes me happy.
Yeah, definitely pass that on. It's so sweet, and I'm kind of glad that I'm able to reignite that flame in my family as well, and so I hope that people see kind of my kids even more involved than I was, and that just the generations down can kind of stay connected to that.
Yeah,
those special roots we have in Alberta.
Yeah, keep the tradition flowing. I like that. That sounds great. So you have held in total 3 rodeo royalty titles. They're all a little bit different from each other. So can you kind of explain your role with each one for people that were maybe unaware of all of the titles that you did hold?
Yeah, I had a bit of an unconventional path as compared to what a lot of young women do. But for me, they actually lent quite well to one another. So I started out and I ran for Calgary Stampede Royalty. Excuse me. So kind of a part that I like to include is I ran in 2014 or for the 2014 Calgary Stampede Royalty, and I didn't make it, but it was such a strong will that I had to be a part of it that I decided to run again. And at that time, for me, I kind of considered the Calgary Stampede my home rodeo because I grew up in High River, Alberta. High River never had a rodeo queen that I was aware of. That was pretty much the main rodeo that we went to every year. We would also go down to Stavely. At the time, there was not a rodeo queen. So really, I had seen the Calgary Stampede Royalty. That was really what I was most aware of as far as rodeo royalty. So that is kind of where my desire came to, I wanted to be Calgary Stampede Royalty. I wasn't really aware of the whole world of rodeo royalty out there, just because that was what I was exposed to. And they had come to a parade when I was a little girl sitting in High River, so I just loved following them. And, as a kid, it's about their outfits, but as you get older, you kind of see the work that they do in the community. So I went on and in 2018, I ran again for the 2018 Calgary Stampede Royal Trio and was successful. So I did that for 1 year. I was a Calgary Stampede Princess. Anyone who knows how the program works, there's 3 of us that we work as a team, and we work to promote the Calgary Stampede. So that was a wonderful, wonderful experience. But really our job was to promote the Calgary Stampede as a whole, as an organization, as a not-for-profit organization, which is so much more than the 10-day festival that most people know as the Calgary Stampede. So we worked all throughout the year, traveling to different corporate events and even internationally, promoting tourism and the city of Calgary and the Calgary Stampede as a not-for-profit that invests into youth development in our city. So, but through that role, we obviously got to go to some rodeos as well to promote the Calgary Stampede. So we got to be part of a few grand entries, and that's where I started to meet these other rodeo queens. And I had no idea, to be honest. It's a little bit embarrassing to say now, but I really didn't know that so many rodeos had rodeo queens, and I became aware of just this whole other world, and I still felt that desire. I had loved what I was doing with the Calgary Stampede, but I did have a bit of a desire to kind of get to know these little small town rodeos and that side of it a little bit more. So that's when I started looking at kind of the idea of pursuing a different rodeo queen title after my year as Calgary Stampede. So the way that it worked out, I finished my contract with the Calgary Stampede in September, and I knew that I had wanted to get another title and run for Miss Rodeo Canada as I was getting older, and there's only a certain age range that someone is eligible to run for Miss Rodeo Canada. So this is my long-winded story. So I started to reach out to different rodeos and see if anyone would take me on as their rodeo queen, and that's when I became aware of so many rodeos really would like to have rodeo queens, but may not necessarily have the resources or the manpower that they might think. So I was so fortunate and blessed to have the Chad Best Plug Invitational take me on as their representative, and just the way that it worked out, I was Chad Best Plug Invitational Queen for a short time, because with my contract ending in September, I only got to go to a few events with the CBI title, but it was we did the grassroots final and the Canadian Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame induction dinner, and then I got to represent them at the Miss Rodeo Canada competition. And that was really neat because people would come up to me, "Oh, Claire's home," and kind of tell me stories about Claire's home. So something even that simple as holding the title really that was a conversation starter, and it sparked a lot of really interesting conversations and got me some new relationships, because people just wanted to tell me their stories about going to the bull riding or about going to other rodeos in the area. So that was neat. And then I was fortunate to take home the Miss Rodeo Canada title, which was the last year of my life. So I was Miss Rodeo Canada 2019, which just finished up after the national finals rodeo this December.
Yeah, what a different journey, like you said, than what most rodeo queens usually have. They usually have ran for a rodeo title like the Sundre Pro Rodeo, the Strathmore or Medicine Hat, any of those big ones. Ponoka is another big one. And then they go from there to Miss Rodeo Canada. And for your story is just so different and so interesting. And I think that it's something